Before you start, to try and I guess get your color, your gel coat tinted to match the boat, you need to make sure that you're starting with an area that is the actual true color of what you're trying to match. So the first step, every time, no matter what, is you want to wet sand the area where you're going to be applying your gel coat swatches or patches and working through the color matching process. And for that, I take a little bit of soapy water and some 1500 grit paper, wet sanding paper. By wet sanding it, you're cleaning the surface. You're getting rid of any surface oxidation, any dirt, grime, anything that's going to affect that's going to hide the true color of the gel coat that you're trying to actually match. And then after you've got it sanded down pretty well, wipe off all the sanding residue, and then I'll go over top of this with a nice thin layer of wax, just to bring that rich color back. The area that you choose to do your color matching process on, make sure that it's close, in proximity to where you're actually going to be doing the repair. Because as I had mentioned before, the color on a boat is going to vary from location to location. So if you're doing a repair up, say, at the bow of the boat, it wouldn't make any sense to do your color matching on the transom of the boat. They're too far apart. Now the pigments that we use when we're tinting the gel coat, they're a polyester-based tint, and they're more or less designed specifically for use on polyester resins or on gel coat. And they come in a lot of different colors. For the most part, I find that I can get away with, it's basically 5 different colors. I've got a red, a phthalo blue, a phthalo blue, and then a black, a brown, and then a yellow. Now for this particular color, we're going to be starting with a white base, and we're going to use 3 main colors, our brown, yellow, and then black. So what I like to do, I guess, to get started is I take all the pigments out that I'm going to need, set them down on some paper towel, and if you're working outside, take the paper towel and tape it down to something so it can't blow away. And you see, notice, rubber gloves. You don't want this pigment on your hands either. Not so much that it's toxic or terrible for you, it's just whatever color you get on your hands, you're going to have there for at least a week. I'll go ahead and I'll get some of this pigment put out on each of these different mixing sticks. Each color is going to have its own stick. Take just one of the sticks, crack it in half, and then crack it in half again. And these, I'm just going to use these for actually taking the pigment out and dipping them on to one of these larger sticks. And then I'll take the color and just kind of smear it down till it fades off. Like that. Now when we're looking at pouring out the actual gel coat base, the regular bright white base, before you even do that, you want to make sure you got to stir it up really well. You can either stir it, or I usually just shake it. I will add, if you decide to shake it, make sure you're holding the lid on. One thing that really sucks is to, pour out your gel coat, get the color matched, go to do your repair, and find out that maybe you had to do an extra touch-up that you didn't anticipate, and now you're out of gel coat. So make sure you mix up more than what you're going to need. And for this, I'm probably going to do, 10 or 12 ounces of the base, and then as we go through our color matching process, there'll be a little bit of loss, maybe an ounce tops. Now once I get to this point, the very first thing that I always do is I come in and I just take and make a little swatch of the gel coat. It kind of gives me a starting or a reference point. And I think the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to stay zoomed out just like I am here, just so you can see how I actually mix the pigment in with the gel. And then after we got a good feel on that process, then I'll zoom in much tighter on here so you can better see the color swatches and how they change as we move along and hopefully get closer to matching our color. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of these sticks that has the pigment, I'm going to take the stick and I'm going to put a little bit of gel coat on the end. It's not in the pigment, but it's just on the end. Okay, put a little bit on there. And then I'm going to start to stir this, slowly working this up into the pigment. And then as we hit it, you can start to see that there's some pigment getting mixed in with the gel coat. Keep on pulling this up, working it in. And then as it mixes, it runs off the end of the stick and drips down into our base. You know, constantly be stirring your gel coat. You want to be able to see how much pigment is actually going into your mix. It's easy to add color to your mix. It is very difficult to take it back out once you go too far and add too much. So it's better to do this slowly and cautiously than to try and slam it all together. But so now we've got that. Again, this isn't going to be anywhere close to our panel, but I want to see what kind of difference it made just on the base. Now the next color I'm going to look to add in here is going to be the yellow. And just by looking at this, I can tell that there's a fair amount of yellow in this. So again, all of our pigments are going to be added the same way. We're going to take the stick that has the color on it. We're going to throw some gel coat on top of here, and then we're just going to mix it in. Let it run off the stick and into our batch. And when we're going through this process, we're going to be going back and forth through all of these colors again. We're just going to slowly inch our way up to the actual finished color. But every time we add a color, we're going to add a swatch all the way across here, just so we can kind of track our progress. And what I'll typically do, especially with a color, with a color that's got a lot of, it's a heavily pigmented color. It's not, see, with how much different it was from just a straight white, there's a fair amount of pigment level in this. So what I'll do is after we've gone through with our yellow, I'll keep adding the yellow, working it in until I can start to see that my overall batch is, I'm able to see the yellow in the batch. And I've gotten to that point. I laid up a little swatch here, so let me zoom in so you can kind of see the progress of how things have gone. I guess let's start over here and go from right to left. Here's the straight white out of the can, and then as we kept on going through, we added a little more yellow and more until we finally got to this patch right here. This is the first patch where I'm actually able to see the yellow in the overall mix. So once I get to this point, now I'm going to switch to a different color. All right, same process, just a different color. One of the main reasons that I add my pigment this way, using the sticks and stirring it off, if you were to just take one of these sticks and take a little glop of pigment and throw it into your batch, you have no way of controlling how much color you're actually adding. Whereas if you do it this way, you can add as little or as much as you want at any point. It's just a matter how aggressively you let the gel coat run off the end of the stick as you're mixing it. All right, I just added some more brown, which is right here. This is the most recent one. And I'm starting to actually see the brown in here actually overpower any of the other colors, yellow or even the black. So once I get to this point where I'm starting to notice that one particular color is starting to dominate, then I'll go back to one of my other colors, which in this case is going to be yellow. I'm going to switch back to that, and I'm going to start a new row up here. This is where it just starts to get back and forth. You make a little change, you look at it, kind of walk away for a few minutes, come back, take another look, and it's just, at this point, there's really no, I guess, rules to follow. You just you play around with it. You add some in, see what it does, and you add something. You just keep adding things. Sometimes it's a little more of the brown or the white. Sometimes you even need to add white. Regular gel coat back in to lighten it back up if you take the pigment too far. I think we're starting to close in on it here. Again, just for reference, this is what we started with. This was a straight white, different shades of yellow. I started adding my browns. And then here I added some, a little bit more yellow, and then some black, and then added some more yellow, and this is where we're at right now. I think at this point, I'm going to start adding in a little bit more of the black. Adding the black in here is the trick to getting this dialed in, I think. I'm happy with the levels of the brown and the yellow in here, but it's still a little light. You know, like it needs to just be darkened up. It needs to, you know, be a little dirtier. So here's where our most recent patch after adding some black compared to where we started from. So, and I'm gonna go back and do a little bit more yellow, a little bit more brown. Now we're fine tuning. Now the amount of pigment that I add at a time is gonna be very small. All right, we got it. I did have to add some more black, some more yellow, some more brown, you know, and just kind of play around with it back and forth, but we got it. But just to kind of recap a little bit as far as, you know, where we started from and kind of how many different trials we had to do to get to our finished color right here. This is where we started, flat white right out of the can, added in our yellows, got to the point right here where we could start to see the yellow tint in the gel coat. Switched over to adding some browns in through here. I'm trying to remember, I think we added in some blacks and a little bit more yellow to get to this point. And then from here, I think it was more browns, more yellows, and just going back and forth. Now once we start to get into here, now we're getting pretty darn close. And hopefully the camera can see this, but they're very subtle differences. All the way through, and then right now our finished color, let me see if I can even find it here, is right here. Basically right, well, figures. That pen doesn't want to write on here. But it is right here. So this is it. This is what we're going to go with. Well, I'm going to cut the video off here because our next step is going to be actually applying that, and I want to have that kind of in its own little segment by itself. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please give some thought to hitting the like button. As well, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to try and put the subscribe button right, let's put it right here. And then also, if you haven't heard already, I started a new channel that's going to be Q&A, question and answer, follow-up videos to each of my videos. I'll include a link for that right here so you can check that out and give some thought to subscribing. And as always, we got Facebook and Twitter, and then lastly, my website, bulwarkstoday.com. I'm going to include kind of an interactive, kind of a color chart thing where you can say, well, okay, let's add this color to this color, what do we get? So that'll be kind of cool. I'll include a link to that site on my webpage. And as always, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great weekend, and we will see you again soon for applying all the gel coat and making this go away. Talk to you later.
This has been a Bulwarks Today production.